Morning. Welcome. This is New Day Kenya. A warm welcome to you. And we are glad that you are on time. We are on air. It's day 12 of August 2019, Monday. And papers are detailing lots of different stories, but a totally different discussion later on the roundtable.
Is it right to say Eidul Adha Mubarak? Eidul Adha Mubarak? Is it right to say so? Ama imepita?
Well, it's a
day after?
No, it's a 3-day Eid.
So Eidul Adha. Eidul Adha.
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 So the H is read as X.
All right.
Yeah.
Adha.
Adha.
But how is that X? Well, exactly the discussion that we'll be having today, and I'll get to learn some bit of course, the Muslim, I don't want to say culture, but Muslim religion for that matter. I've been doing this a couple of times when you were away, by the way. It'll fit through to learn some bit of things and, some bit of understanding, that process of a fast and all that. So I think I have so much in store, in numerous questions for you, by the way. That's the reason why, of course, I am struggling to understand or maybe to be able to pronounce the word Eidul Adha. And of course, we say Mubarak one for that matter. Of course, as the Muslims are across the world were out here yesterday celebrating this beautiful day, and we'll be learning some of the things and why they opted to celebrate this particular day and what is the significance, and most importantly, what lessons we pick from that. Welcome aboard. My name is Linda Alela.
All right, and of course, as Alia mentioned, we are going to be taking in stock what it means, the importance, of course, religion plays in a secular society, and how they are crucial in the making of a nation towards, of course, the prosperity, unity, and of course, the coming together, the galvanization of the many religions that are part and parcel of these countries. So we will be taking a look at the daily papers before we take a look at what our team managed to put up together as of yesterday, and they pertain, of course, the Eid celebrations across many counties in the country, here in Nairobi, Mombasa, in Nakuru, and equally in Kisumu counties. So, Madam Director, do we have the papers on the digital platform? Yes, all right. Then we can have the hard copies here, and they do detail, so we can have the main headline.
Yeah, and of course, the Daily Nation says that Uhuru Raila build a new super alliance. This all in the name of course, this word referendum. And according to the Daily Nation, then it looks like it's not a question of if, but certainly when we're going to have a referendum. All right. Interestingly.
And of course, the pictures do say a really different political landscape.
Yes, and what, of course, different leaders are going to bring on table. Normally, of course, we know very well when it comes to the question of politics right here in the country. If you're coming in to join into a group, you're always asked what it is that you're bringing on the table so that your stakes are higher in the event that they choose to have you as an alliance or maybe part of this particular. Remember what happened with NASA and numerous other situations that we've witnessed, of course, right from the time of inception of multipartism. And, of course, we've seen different leaders coming together to form alliances, different leaders coming together, as one particular face and forming a party that is going to take them to the next level, of course, of election. And this time around, in the event that we're likely to have a referendum, looks like, in as much as Deputy President William Ruto has been saying that Jubilee is intact, he looks like he's been thrown out on this particular talk of the referendum. According to the picture, yes. And most so, according to what we expect as of what will be the BBI, and the report of the BBI, or maybe the proposal of the BBI that is set to counter what, of course, Ekuru Okoth's team, Third Way Alliance, has presented in terms of Punguza Mizigo. And what the pictures depict right here is that, of course, there's that big figure of President Uhuru Kenyatta and, of course, Right Honorable Raila Odinga, who seem to be the figures that are going to form an alliance at this particular time in the event that we go for a referendum. We're probably, sort of anticipating or maybe say, having this feeling that maybe it's going to be about, of course, the change of the presidential system in the country to parliamentary system, and where we're going to have, a strong contender, of course, of a prime minister and maybe a president who has no powers, so to speak. And it looks like Musalia Mudavadi is going to be part and parcel of this. And what they say is that, of course, is going to bring the Amani Coalition or maybe Amani National Congress on table. And, of course, we see the figure of Gideon Moi, an interesting view right here, and I think has been expounded much more in the Standard newspaper in a different way. And it looks like Gideon Moi is going to bring back the is backing the BBI as is Isaac Ruto's Chama cha Mashinani. I think you saw them yesterday
CCM,
together,
yes,
the
together.
CCM. So it looks like, of course, this is what they're going to bring on table. So they're going to bring the Rift Valley region on a table. We see Weta sometimes I just don't understand what Weta ever brings on the table. But Moses Wetangula is bringing Ford Kenya to the BBI table. Is Ford Kenya really as active as it was during the times of
One
the
of the
vice
longest
president?
surviving
One of the
parties
longest
after the
surviving parties.
multi-party.
But man, has Weta done it justice? If you look at the likes of Wamalu and those other people who were there, I mean, Weta, in a way, I don't know, well,
Way below
at least he's been able to
the bar.
sustain the party way below the bar. And lastly, there's Kalonzo Musyoka, who has indicated that his Wiper Democratic Movement is pro-BBI. So it looks like he's going to bring in Wiper, the Ukambani region and everything. A nice cocktail to form presidency, or a nice cocktail to be strong enough of course, a party, or maybe to be strong enough of an alliance to ensure that they take power in the event that maybe we go for a referendum. I mean, even if it's not a referendum, in the event that we go to that, we continue with the current, of course, system of presidency, even though President Uhuru Kenyatta now would be locked out. So that means then,
At the center.
yes, the referendum has to be there.
All right, and then there's one man who is learning
Yes,
withering
Deputy
the
President
storm,
William
and
Ruto.
the DP William Ruto is that man against all the coming together of the President, Raila Odinga, Musalia Mudavadi, two former vice presidents and two senators who now support the BBI that is yet to put together its report regarding what ails the country. Of course, it's a byproduct of the political truce between the President and the opposition chief, Raila Odinga, in March, ever since March 2018. And is set to look into the problems that normally punctuate the country after every electoral cycle. Some now coming to support the initiative put forth by the Third Way Alliance Party of Kenya's Daktari Ekuro Kot, and some saying we shall await the outcome of the BBI, saying some even preempting its entire essence and recommendation, saying that it's all about expanding the executive at the top, and of course that is the kind of political, of course, uncertainty held by the Ruto camp of the ruling Jubilee Party. This, to be confident to say that, because equally then the party looks disenfranchised, fragmented, and not heading in the right direction they ought that it will head afterwards its launch in 2016.
The surprise is that why is it that they're living in denial? Why is it that Deputy President William Ruto keeps saying that the party is intact?
And the President hasn't
the President hasn't spoken about it, surprisingly. And, talking of which, of course, the question right now on ground is whether Deputy President William Ruto is going to be to support or back the BBI recommendations, of course, that are set to be launched as an onslaught against them. And if you look at what is on the Standard newspaper, Ayub, you realize that, of course, the allies of Deputy President William Ruto are not, for the Punguza Mizigo. Neither are they likely to be for the BBI. So then it leaves us wondering where the main man will be standing at this particular time, even as he says that he's focused on supporting. He is a boss, that is President Uhuru Kenyatta, on basically what he brings on table. The BBI is a fruit of the handshake. Deputy President William Ruto has said it's important that we support the handshake. But then is he going to support the BBI? Remember, of course, during the Chatham address, at some point in time, he felt like maybe we do not need a referendum as a country. So if the BBI is coming aboard to front that talk of a referendum, then there are likelihoods that the Deputy President William Ruto would probably go against it. Then what does it mean when he speaks about supporting the BBI, or supporting the handshake, yet he would not be confident on supporting the BBI? And as you can see, Standard newspaper, Ruto allies fight for powerful president. And of course they say, what if one day we elect a leader who turns out to be a dictatorial president? We only want a 5-term limit for Kenyan presidents. That is according to Uasin Gishu Senator Margaret, of course, Kamar. And according to Punguza Mizigo Initiative, when term of president comes to an end, Kenyans will be subjected to another round of elections. Of course, cause for concern brought aboard by Mumias East Member of Parliament Benjamin Wasiali. And of course, Deputy President Deputy President William Ruto's face on the front page equally. And the status quo leaders are opposed to single term of 7 years as envisaged by Third Way Alliance bill, and instead root for retention of the current structure of presidency. A clear indication that they won't be for the BBI.
Another equally important story on the front page of the Daily Nation, and that's all about the warning issued by Fred Matiang'i, the CS, Interior and Coordination of National Government, in the wake of the Bamburi attacks in Mombasa County. He says peddling and consumption of narcotics is spawning criminal gangs at the cost and ones of painful period, and says that there's going to be a mop-up of criminal operation by the security agencies, calling upon the stakeholders, the leadership of the county, and of course the religious fraternity, and equally members of the public, to ensure that they support the forthcoming operation to weed out what he says are drug peddlers in the county. He even said that the drug net is going to be, of course, putting into custody the political leadership behind what he says the funding and fueling of what we witnessed last Sunday in County 001, and it's detailed on page 6 of today's Daily Nation edition. An expanded view, of course, you can get that on what he said yesterday in Mombasa County when he met at the leadership of the Coast region. And he said, time for threats and promises is over, he told and assured, guaranteed the people of Mombasa County to expect results.
I think we all waited to see what he's going to say. We always know that he's a performer, and every other time he promises that he's going to bring sanity. You know, we always witness that. It was tough in the Kapedu Triangle, of course, the sides of Baringo, but for now, at least we've witnessed some level of peace. And I think what is happening in the coast region should be condemned highly. Of course, I think we'll also be having that discussion later on as to what we can really ensure, what we can really do to ensure that security is paramount and security is upheld in these particular regions. And I think this tough talk, of course, coming from the CS for Interior is indeed a clear indication that, of course, the residents of Mombasa and maybe residents from different parts of the country should not be worried, because the government is up there on task to ensure that security is maintained and security is upheld of course, for the purpose of our very own people. I mean, it is quite sad to witness such occurrences as what we witnessed yesterday, and Imam also being, of course, he had. So it was such a painful experience, and we can only hope that indeed his promises are going to be fulfilled towards this. Even politicians are going to be dragged into this, and I think it's the best thing to do to ensure that we get security.
All right, and in Health Digest on page 3 of the Standard newspaper, all about the killer disease, that is cancer. And there are bad food that are linked to cervical cancer. 49 or 57% of women tested positive for aflatoxin, and a fungal toxin infecting the food chain is the cause, according to the paper. And there's a diagrammatic explanation of the cereals that are susceptible crops and the field crops infested with aflatoxin. They include the maize, tree nuts, spices. Poor storage also leads to cancer, and animal consumption, that is, and dairy are infected from the contaminated feeds. The impact on dairy production leads to loss of income and feed. And then there is the human consumption, that the toxins in staple food and dairy products that perhaps causes the rise in cancer cases that we have in the country. 90 people die of cancer rather daily.
Yeah, daily.
And that's in an exponential increase across the country. With regards to now the government planning to invest in research and come up with preventive mechanisms, because it appears that different regions have different types of cancer, and perhaps the need or necessity for investment in research to establish what really causes and how this can be, of course, prevented, instead of now banking more on treatment and the sense of patients flocking out of the country seeking better treatment outside, especially in India.
Yes, it's of course also expanded right there. Late diagnosis hinders cancer, and I think most of the cancers, by the way, are attributed to what we eat. So that's the reason why you're always advised on what you are eating. I mean, you're always advised to be cautious every other time that you're putting something into your mouth. You just get to understand what will be the implications of you taking anything in excess, or maybe having, of course, to take something that is not, of course, you know, safe for that. I mean, for instance, you've seen what has been highlighted there, the question of aflatoxin. You know, storage issues are very, very important. The way you handle your food is very, very important. Cleaning your food very well before, of course, cooking, and even before eating it is very, very important. But then again, as you'll always be told, fruits and vegetables in I don't want to say in excess, but of course in plenty, to ensure that you sort of protect yourself from these different cases of cancer that we would experience.
All right, now we flip over to the cartoon page of the Daily Nation.
Daily Nation, okay.
And we see what it details. Quite important one
on the census.
Brought up by on the census. Yes. Here we are, and there is a shout out from the dead in the grave, who say that we are glad it's happening at night. We can appear
and disappear. That's unfortunate. Well, that's a clear indication that our processes sometimes
accountability again.
Yes, accountability and all that.
It's been brought to question so many times, especially in the elections, that one party of the political establishment did raise this issue, saying that there are dead voters in the register that the IEBC failed to clear out. And again, this is another issue that is so important in the forthcoming exercise set to start on the 9th of 24th of August 2019.
Yep.
We are about 12 days away
12
from
days
that.
to 8. Of course, this has altered also the activities in schools, and that means then, of course, there'll be a delay in opening of schools just because, of course, this census process has to be conducted. Or you say they're going to be, it's always done at night, by the way. I don't know whether you've witnessed a census, moment in your life. Have you?
Well, is it perhaps the idea that people are
At
home
night, of course, everyone is at home at that particular. I have experienced maybe once or twice, if I'm not. That is how old I am.
How about?
How about what?
Well, there was a political leader who over the weekend did say that sasa wale ambao mlikuwa mnakunywa mbaki nyumbani.
Inabidi ukae nyumbani kwa sababu sasa
Let's just
utahesabiwa.
count you for that one night.
I know,
And then
right?
go about your other businesses.
Let's make it
afterwards.
easy.
Yeah, just
Let's
make it easy.
Yeah, true.
Na msitoroke na wale wa mpango wa kazi.
Now, even worse. And it's funny how my dad is going to say, I have 3 kids, blah, blah, blah. And then they're still going to come to my own
unless
family
he can
and
maneuver
count
from
me.
house one, then maybe gives out flimsy excuses, goes to the next house.
To their next house, true.
So that he can start counting. At least there must be the mathematical aspect of it.
Yes.
Not per se revealing, the details.
What was the biggest, of course, fear of Huduma number
well,
in terms of...
as never the case was.
But yeah, we wait to
with
see.
the Huduma, it demanded a lot of information. But this one, it doesn't matter. You can go from point A to B, maneuver, give out some excuses, but at least the children should be counted because this will lead to, of course, the proper planning of the government in ensuring that the resources are shared as per the numbers. Because we had a lot of controversy around the 2009 one.
Right.
Still, there's a pending case in court. And that's why we are seeing all the political members, the members of the political leadership now coming on board saying that the process must be accountable. It must be transparent and it must be subject to, of course, what they say is accountability in the essence that it can be proven in the event that there is going to be a controversy. But we are going to be tackling this, and as the supervisors and those who have been mandated to undertake the exercise will be embarking on that mandate on the 24th.
Security also is paramount. I hope they have...
Of course, especially in the frontier, five frontline frontier counties in Wajir, Garissa, Marsabit, and Isiolo counties, which is equally important because they do border at the border in Ethiopia or either in Somalia.
Yeah. Of course, security is paramount. We certainly believe that the government has also put aboard, proper structures and policies towards ensuring that indeed security is looked into. Security for the officials who will be conducting these census and also for family members, because you don't just want to open your door to a stranger. And, I don't know so far whether, of course, there's been civic education as to what to expect. In as much as maybe these processes have been done before, I think it's important that people get civic education so that in the event that an official comes into your house, you're able to sort of tell whether they're genuine or they're not genuine officials for that matter.
And of course, the other pertinent issue raised was, of course, the matters that regard the time that will be taken, and of course the pushing forward of the schools opening date by the Ministry of Education. Avoiding perhaps a possible clash or friction with the national census, population census that is set to be undertaken by the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. And the results will be according to the Interim Minister of Finance, Treasury Ukuri Yatani, will be available in 90 days' time. That is about 3 months. So equally, it will be an anxious waiting time for Kenyans to know how the country has grown in terms of the demography and what needs to be looked into.
The population is growing bigger and bigger by the day.
Of course.
But of course, the basic needs equally.
For those especially who, of course, are polygamous.
It's true, by the way. I think by then the population is growing higher because of the aspect of polygamous and of polygamy, as opposed to what, well, it is healthy. It is
I know you don't support that.
I know women would confidently do. I just don't understand how, of course, women from this other side, the Muslims, just are happy every other time when they hear that, yes, the husband is going to bring somebody else home, the second one, and the third one, and the fourth one. Sometimes I sort of feel like there's some level of hypocrisy in all this.
Well, I tell you, there is a lot of issues that you need to address. And we had a discussion with our colleague in the newsroom that was on Thursday. They say call a set guideline before you go to
you go to that level. There
must be justice, equity, and the law is very clear. But apparently we have a violation of that law. Of course,
the first one should not be deprived.
Well,
but normally they are.
The aspect of feeling dissatisfied or displeasured is paramount. But Well, it plays out. It plays out a bit better. Then it's good to have a big family.
Well, it's good
My
to
dad
have.
was one. I'm very proud of him.
Yes. Are you going to follow into the steps?
We'll talk
Subject.
that off the mic.
Well, anyway, yeah, indeed, it's good to have the numbers. Like I said, nowadays it's out of polygamy as opposed to back then when our mothers used to have one mom has about 8, 12, 10 kids. At least for us nowadays, we do 2, 3, 4 maximum kids. So yes, polygamous is probably
Instead
the
of,
only way.
beating around the bush.
Yes.
It's clear, isn't it? Just settle.
It's okay. Yes, there you go.
Well, we take a look at whether our team managed to put up together our constitutors of yesterday, and there is a clear nexus between the recent Mombasa attacks in which innocent residents were viciously hacked by knife-wielding criminals and the movement of drugs.
Now, this is according to Interior Cabinet Secretary Dr. Fred Matiang'i, who says the Monday night incidents, which saw at least 13 people, of course, injured, are symptomatic, yes, of deep-seated challenges in the region, but warned that the gang's time is up.
Speaking after a meeting with regional and county security teams together with local political leaders, Dr. Fred Matiang'i assured that the government will stamp out all criminal networks. During his Sunday visit to the county, he noted, and I quote, "We are aware of some political leaders who are attempting to incite the youth under the guise of political mobilization. I'm sure Kenyans no longer want to hear tough talk. They want results, and rest assured we will deliver as expected." End of quote. Already, he said, security agencies have commenced a systematic operation to confront the issue head-on and exuded confidence it will bear fruits.
Let us not pretend, and I will not lie to the people of Kenya here and start pretending that we don't know what the issues are, that we do not understand what the issues are. There is a clear nexus between the movement of drugs and the peddling of drugs in the coastal region with certain political activity with people who are highly placed in this society. Now, that time has come. There are choices to be made, and I think as government we have made our choices. Because we also have to be sincere. This thing has destroyed our children. It has destroyed our young people in Mombasa. So we cannot continue, talking to each other as if it's ordinary business. It is not.
Police have already apprehended 11 out of the 13 youth suspected to have directly taken part in the attacks, and said the officers have cast the net even wider and will soon catch up with the masterminds.
So we are going to the farthest extent, even if it means looking inside amongst ourselves, within the government structures we have, security enforcement infrastructure we have, we are reorganizing all of it to address this problem.
The security chief warned that the government cannot surrender the lives of young people to some criminals, whatever their social status or political affiliation. "We are not naive. We understand the risks associated with drug peddling, and we will stay the course of our agenda for youth development and national security," the CS said. The CS later had a walkthrough in Mshomoroni area, Kankodia, Kadzadani, Mwatamba, where he opened police posts and addressed residents. He was in the company of Inspector General of Police Hilary Mutyambai, the Director of National Counter-Terrorism Center Ambassador Martin Kimani, the Secretary for Internal Security Moffat Kangi, Coast Regional Commissioner John Elungata, Mombasa County Senator Mohamed Faki, among others. Winnie Lubembe for Ebru TV.
Has declared, of course, that 3 days of mourning, of national mourning, after, of course, this sad occurrence that played out in Morogoro, about 200 kilometers from Dar es Salaam, an incident that so many people lose their lives. And, of course, 3 days of mourning, this particular tanker explosion that played out will certainly be something that, of course, be condemned. I mean, we have witnessed that in the country equally at that particular time when we've seen, of course, people in Sinai sort of losing their lives because of the explosion of this particular tankers.
All right, and now reporter Ode Francis managed to put up this report and filed the following report.
Tanzania is mourning the death of now 64 people who perished in an explosion that took place in Morogoro region. Of the 70 people who were injured with serious burns were airlifted to Tanzania's biggest hospital, Muhimbili, in Dar es Salaam. President John Pombe Magufuli has declared 3 days of mourning and pleaded for the people to stop risking their lives by stealing petrol in such emergencies.
Udongo kwa udongo, majivu kwa majivu, mavumbi kwa mavumbi.
In what looks like a routine in African setup where people forget what might happen in case oil explodes, with hope of reselling the fetched oil, ending their lives there and then. In the case of Nigeria, nearly 80 people died in May in a similar incident near the airport, Niger's capital, Niamey. 292 people were killed in the Democratic Republic of Congo in 2010, with the same incident happening in South Sudan in 2015, where 203 people lost their lives. In Kenya 2009, an overturned tanker exploded near Sachangwan in today's Nakuru County, leaving 113 people dead and more than 200 injured as a result of lit cigarette that lit up the spilled fuel. So what are you supposed to do if such an incident happens?
It's unfortunate that yesterday in Tanzania Republic, we lost many lives to fire incident resulting due to hazardous material. So what I should advise the public is that in case of coming across such incidents as an accident, they need to keep away a distance, reasonable distance, preferably 100 meters away and beyond, so that they take care of themselves and make the area safe. Call the experts to manage the incident.
Pius Masai, a disaster and emergency expert, explains, in such fire incidences, one is advised not to assume that a fire alarm is a test or burned microwave popcorn. Any alarm could be the result of a dangerous fire. Do not waste time collecting personal items. Take your keys and yourself to safety as soon as possible. And in case of fire in a building, don't use the elevators during a fire emergency. Always use the stairs. For Ebro TV, I'm Ode Francis.
Now, Kenyan Muslims yesterday joined other faithfuls across the world in marking Eid al-Adha celebrations.
Now, Eid al-Adha, which means the festive of the sacrifice, commemorates the story of the Muslim prophet Ibrahim's test of faith. Our reporter Jeff Khaimba with more details on that story. Well, you're making it a tongue twister.
This was the picture of most of the Muslims who converged at different centers across the world in marking Eid al-Adha.
La mafunzo hapa kubwa, ataka wewe umpe mwenzako, yule arudi kuona kwamba mimi na huyu bwana, mimi na jirani yangu, kumbe tu kitu kimoja, twakumbukana, tuelewana. Kuanzia hapa tumekuja, tumeonyesha umoja wetu, tumesalimiana, tumependana, tunarudi sasa kwenda kuchinjiana. Kila aliyenacho akumbuke jirani, akumbuke maskini, akumbuke mjane, akumbuke yatima. Na huo ndio binadamu.
The day is marked with the sacrifice of an animal, usually a goat, sheep or a cow, and the distribution of the meat among the neighbors, family members and the poor.
Saidia maskini baada kumaliza sala. Sala maana yake ni maombi. Waislamu wote wanasanyika wanaomba Allah. Idi kama hii inakuja kwa mwaka mara mbili, Eidul Fitr na Eidul Adha. Eidul Adha maana yake Eid ya kuchinja, kwa sababu siku ya leo masha Allah Waislamu wanachinja ajili ya Allah.
The festival marks the end of Ramadan, the Islamic holy month which involves Muslim fasting during the daylight hours for 29 to 30 days.
Kwa uwezo wake ametujalia sisi ambayo wengi hawakuwa wamechinja, na wale walikuwa na uwezo waliochinja kabla ya leo pia kesho wanaweza kuchinja.
Na hii Eid ambao mnafanya sacrifice ambao ni kitu muhimu sana, ni kitu ambao nimesema hatuwezi kuiacha ipite bila sisi kutafuta jinsi ya kuwapatia mbuzi, na tuanze, hii ni mwanzo. Na leo tunatoa mbuzi 100. Wajua hii pesa yetu ya ngafu ni kidogo, lakini mwaka itayokuja.
Although the majority of the Muslims will celebrate the 4-day holiday starting Sunday, for many including those living in the Philippines, India and Pakistan, Eid al-Adha will not begin until Monday. The holiday also marks the end of Hajj, the 5-day-long pilgrimage Muslims undertake to cleanse the soul of the sin and instill a sense of equality and brotherhood among the Muslims. Reporting for Ebro TV, I'm Jeff Khaimba.
That story forms the basis of our discussion this morning as, of course, we take a look at lessons that you can pick from Eid al-Adha. I am trying to learn it until by the time we're done.
Pronunciation.
That was good, Eid al-Adha. All right, there you go. And, of course, aside from that, we'll be taking a look at what, of course, is in the world of politics as Deputy President William Ruto has once again reiterated his stand over church contributions.
Now, leaders who supported the second man in command in church service led by Narok Governor Samuel Ole Tunai assured the DP of massive support come 2022 due to Jubilee Party's development agenda. Ruto, who yesterday joined faithfuls of the Narok and Meru counties Islam leaders planning to move a bill aimed at regulating church contributions. The ODM chairperson, that's John Badi, wrote to the National Assembly Speaker Justin Muturi and proposed amendments to the Public Officers Ethics Act that will cap the Harambee contributions to 100,000 Kenya shillings.
Your Excellency, hii ni Narok North na umekaribishwa kabisa. In Narok North sisi hatufanyi siasa, tunahubiri. Deuteronomy 28:7 inasema your enemies will come in one direction, but they will be scattered in 7 different directions. Your Excellency, your enemies are coming from a direction of blocking you in 2022. They will be scattered in so many directions.
Na tusifike mahali tukatekwa nyara na mambo ya dunia hii, kwa sababu unajua katika dunia hii mtu unaambiwa maneno mengi, unaitwa bwana mkubwa, mheshimiwa, mustahiki, excellency, mpaka ukashikwa na kiburi ukaanza kutaka sasa ati kusahihisha Biblia, kwa sababu umefika kiwango umepatiwa mamlaka, majukumu na nini, titles mingi. Na wakumbusha maneno ya Biblia, Kumbukumbu la Torati 8 mstari wa 11. Jihadharini msije mkamsahau Mungu wenu.
Then we hit the break here on the program, and when we come back, I'll brief you of what's happening on our roads. Of course, we don't expect much traffic.
Not, of course, I mean, it's a holiday. What do you expect? It's a nice flow in Nairobi. Mshahara pia imeenda mtu wangu. Ni tarehe ngapi by the way?
12.
Ni tarehe 12. Hakuna magari kwa barabara. Watu mafuta hata imeshaisha. They cannot afford to buy mafuta tena. So at least we'll witness them, of course, coming out with their cars later on in the month, at 30th uko again. So
all right, and then we'll come back and discuss the lessons of Eid al-Adha. Now, one thing that has been, if you study the Bible and the Quran in comparison, is that similar sacrifice was made by Ibrahim in the Bible,
right?
As is the case with the, the Quran, which is the Islamic Bible, and it brings in the comparison in the essence that we all pray to the similar God. Only the differences come aboard in some beliefs and what needs to be done, what not. But the most important element is how religion plays a crucial role in a secular society. Now, one thing we need to be putting into consideration is that Kenya is not a theocracy.
It's not.
Yes.
And
state. That is the discussion that we'll be having lessons from the Eid al-Adha. And hopefully then,
all right, and hopefully
then in Christmas, then we are going to be drawing lessons on the importance of how it's galvanized and how religion is galvanizing. We'll approach it from an angle, including the hijacking of the mainstream religions across the globe. We have seen what happens to the LRA in Uganda, which does bad things in the name of Christianity.
And others, yes, of course, Al-Shabaab
and Al-Qaeda, who do so in the name of Islam and debunk the theory, demystify what they say are the true, of course, reflections of the two mainstream religions in the world.
All right, I'll want to know why, of course, Muslims hold this particular, of course, session or maybe this process by Ibrahim. You call him Ibrahim,
yes.
as we call it. We call him Abraham, yes. I mean, why is it that you consider it very special, yet we have the very same thing, but we've not maybe set up a holiday altogether. I mean, I just would want to understand. Yeah. I mean, I would really want to understand why we don't look at it as, of course, what the Muslim brothers are looking at it. And of course, we get to learn about that more and much more after this short break. And we'll be having different sheikhs that will join you as another share. So we get to understand. I mean, I think today is all about learning for me.
But the lessons will be there after the short break here on the program. Stay tuned.
And here we are on the roads, and of course later on we'll be learning of what is happening across the world. Ayub will be here to update you on what is happening on the international scene. But then let's take a look at what is happening on the roads. Pretty cool morning, cool Monday morning for that matter. Thika Road ni kuteleza mpaka Tao. This is a tweet by at Jirani Wahiga, and I think that's basically what I have witnessed also. I mean, it's been such a smooth ride all the way. And from Thika to town is 100 bob, but from Tao to Nairobi West is 70 bob. Hard economic times. Of course, a tweet by Atwards George. Basically, everything that happens on the road, we're always here to update you. Today, Nairobi, partly cloudy with high of 21.1, of course, centigrade. That is basically on what is happening on the weather. And you know very well that, of course, the weather will always determine how the roads will be every other time right here in the country. And crossing over to another. Today around Gateway Mall, Mombasa Road had 6 accidents at the last just happened now. That is quite sad. A tweet by at EK Kadhenya. I think that needs to be looked into. It's pretty much unfortunate. We certainly hope that people have not lost their lives, or maybe not so much, of course, in terms of people getting hurt. That's very bad. Crowding the carts like that, which diesel fumes and snoring engines, which they are tired from just hunting their meal. Distance, silence, and safety should be observed. Respect the animals. Of course, road users always advised to be cautious on the roads. Just understand the environment around you. Of course, if you are to take care of the people around you, it's also important that you take a look around so that you can also be sure not to hurt animals, because then again they're stray, of course, dogs that you'd see them around, cats and all that. It's important you are careful not to sort of hit them. Washike, there's a tweet here that is of course directed to at DCI_Kenya at ODPP KE, and they're being told Washike traffic police wa Kangundo Road. Aki, these police are thieves. Whoops. Okay, every day hawajali hata kama wanaonwa na hawajali at a time of the day. Wao ni kuchukua tu pesa. Of course, that is hongo. But then again, the question is always, much as we sort of blame the policemen, why is it that we also give them this hongo? Why is it that we subscribe to what they ask for? This is a tweet by at Eric Kagose. We can also blame the drivers and the touts, and something should be done. Those rogue traffic cops at JKIA do more harm to our country's image with their corrupt habits and constant harassment. I wonder what at Kenya airports have done to have these cops moved from the airport. And of course, a tweet by at PG Kangede. I think that is cause for concern. And of course, that I reach Nairobi safe, then it will be not because of the government traffic police. It is working, but not the grace of God. Of course, a lot of tweets coming on board, not really much of what is happening on the roads. I'm sure many people are at home today, so you might not be able to get so much but of course, at least different people. Accident alert in Mombasa Road at Gateway Mall. I think we've talked about that. Extremely overloaded Kenya bus, of course, Kenya Mpya bus from Thika Road. I think that's very, very important, is that it needs to be looked into that. And that's why sometimes they say also traffic policemen are of importance, because if they're there, then some of these buses would be cautious in terms of, them loading. They would not overload. So I think it's very, very important. Waiyaki Way, what's happening? Maybe there's a question. If at all you're using Waiyaki Way, keep us up to speed so that we may get to understand what is certainly happening there. This is a tweet by Atre Lilibet. I would want to know what is happening. Maybe there's some bit of traffic. And I think most of the tweets are from, of course, Mombasa Road, and so much so. About 2 hours ago on the Southern Bypass near the Dagoretti Market in Tachain, there was a man driving a VW Navy Blue Tourage, didn't get the plates. He appeared either drunk or not in control. And by the way, I have seen very many people drunk on the road today. So I think it's important that we are careful as we are using the road, because then again, some of these accidents that we witness are caused by drunk driving, or better, or even, drivers who are driving while they are actually have not had enough sleep. So I think not so much on the roads. In the event that something else comes up, we'll be here to update you over the same. So let's cross over to the round table, where we have a candid discussion on the lessons that we pick from Eid al-Adha. And of course, Ayub is on board, and we also have sheikhs that are going to be joining us so that they can expound much, much more as we get to have this lesson. So we cross over to Ayub right away, who's on the other side of the set, to, of course, introduce the guest. Ayub, I'm throwing it to you.
Well, thank you, Linda, for the assessment on what's happening on our roads. Of course, we did expect that there is not going to be much traffic, since it's a public holiday, as was gazetted by the the government this Monday, 12th of August 2019. Excuse me. I'm okay. And we're going to be looking into the lessons from the Eid al-Adha celebrations, and equally we are joined on set by a Sheikh who equally will be important to, of course, introduce himself. But let me just give you an upbeat assessment of what this day is in the Islamic calendar. According to scholars and imams who are the heads of the Islamic religion, the faithful need to give and forgive, share and care. And of course, this important day, Muslims do commemorate this unique example of commitment and self-sacrifice to God and learn about their victory over devil's temptation not to slay his sole son Ismail as ordered by God. Conversely, he was all prepared to fulfill the command which later proved to be just a test on him. Good morning, Sheikh.
Good morning. Salama sana.
Karibu kwa kuja, and we do thank you for coming on board. Well, you are equally expressive, as you can do it in Swahili, because we'll be multitasking when it comes to issues, because we want to deliver the message home as regards this important day that was yesterday marked by Muslims across the world. Some, of course, are praying today, are marking, and it's equally an expansive day that will extend up to 3 days, where we'll be hearing the name of God echoed in the places of worship of Muslims, to be per se, that is the mosques across the country and across the world. When taking a look at that and how its importance is today relevant in the contemporary or the modern day society, of what importance was yesterday to the Muslim community?
Yesterday, actually, as you've put it, Eid al-Adha is another name for it, Eid al-Hajj. And we Muslims celebrate this day actually to remind ourselves on what the Prophet of Allah, Ibrahim, alayhi salam, went through. One, he had many temptations and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tested him in various occasions. And one of them is having him to be tested to slaughter his only begotten child. You know, he was in old age and all that. And getting a child, he's supposed to be happy and see him grow up. But Allah tests him and tells him, excuse me, slaughter this only son. And of course, at the end, Allah brought an animal that was slaughtered. And we Muslims now take it from there that the sacrifice Ibrahim gave with slaughtering that animal, we also slaughter during Eid al-Hajj to give the meat to the less fortunate.
All right.
Yes.
So I think I want to say that I've picked something that is probably, you know, sort of would have been a question.
Yes.
Maybe it's about the animal, because I would ask you how many, of course, of the stories that we witness in the Quran today, I might not be having proper understanding, but I know also in the Bible, we have this very story. And we have very many servants of God at some point in time, or Allah, who, you know, sort of were obedient to him in a way that was, of course, not so normal, or in a way that, you know, would be considered commendable. And I would want to ask why this particular, you know, sort of sacrifice as opposed to the others and, you know, levels of obedience that we've witnessed within the Quran. I mean, different, of course, servants of Allah coming out to showcase, of course, how obedient they are to Allah. Why is it that you opted to pick this particular one of Ibrahim, one who's considered as Abraham, you know, in the Bible?
Good question, sister. Ibrahim, in all faiths, Christians consider him the father of faith.
Yes.
Muslims also have the same.
Yeah.
And we are told to take the millah. In the Quran, actually, the ayah goes, فَتَّبِعُوا مِلَّةَ إِبْرَاهِيمَ حَنِيفًا.
Okay.
Take the example of Ibrahim.
All right.
So we are picking from what Ibrahim did. Yeah. Of course, there are other messengers who also sacrificed. But Islam goes with the command of Allah. Yeah. If He wants you to pick this, that is what you pick. If He wants you to pick from a certain prophet, that is what you pick. So Allah wanted us, particularly because of the many lessons we find from Ibrahim, one of it, him leaving the idol worship that his people used to do. And the Quran, of course, says, وَقَالَ إِنِّي ذَاهِبٌ إِلَىٰ رَبِّي. He left his people and went to another side.
Yeah, obedience.
Obedience. Most of the things, look at the Hajj itself. What people do in Makkah, going Safa and Marwa, of course, deals with his son, and the wife also, the steps that they were taking, you know. So basically, it is what our Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam commanded us, and Allah commanded us to take example from Ibrahim, and that is basically what we are doing.
Now I understand. Some, you know, sort of comparison to that. A father of faith, we always told that it's impossible to please God if you do not have faith. So I think if we were to have such a ceremony or such a day, then I think we'd also equally pick it up from, you know, Abraham, you know, as opposed, of course, to Jesus Christ at that particular time. So I think Ayub would be coming in with the next question as I get to crack down on some bit of the lessons that I pick.
Okay, and then the commemoration aspect and element comes with the vast, you know, lessons laid by the other prophets in the Quran or in the Bible.
Yes,
and there are specific celebrations, especially for us Muslims, because we do also, aside from this annual event, we in day-to-day basis do emulate or try to epitomize the Prophet, peace be upon him, who was the last messenger in line, and that was revealed, was of course received revelations for about 23 years. But coming to this specific example, it equally comes at a time when it is happening in line for the people who are observing their pilgrimage in the holy city of Mecca. They were the previous day in the Mount Arafat. That coincides with the Eid celebrations here in Kenya. Now, looking at that and how it's transversing in the modern day society, of what importance is sacrifice for any follower of the mainstream religions, Islam and Christianity, and how important is it when it comes to, of course, serving God to the best of your capacity, because we are human at the end of the day then, our capacity is beyond that of the Almighty.
Actually, as you've put it, and you've really put it in a good way, that the main lesson that we derive or get from that particular episode of Ibrahim is sacrifice. And for us, people living in this age, it's just basically teaching us that most of the things that we need in life go around with this aspect of sacrifice. Look at the prayers, for example. Either a Christian or a Muslim. Your busy day, you have the things that you love, your leisure, for example. There's that time that God wants you maybe to be in a particular place. Church or the mosque at that particular time. Yeah, it needs sacrifice for you to sacrifice the things you love to go to what God wants you to. We came again to this aspect of zakah or giving during this age. It is it needs sacrifice for you to take your money, buy a goat maybe or an animal to slaughter and distribute it to the less fortunate. Many things in our life goes around this aspect of sacrifice.
As they would say, one stands, of course, in the presence of Allah as a person, as an individual. So maybe for us to just get to understand what really is involved in this sacrifice, especially when there's this ceremony or when there's this day of Eid al-Adha. Is it a one-man show, or it is a way that you can say maybe we're coming together as family and this is what we're going to sacrifice and present it and, of course, share it to the people?
Okay, the Prophet put it in a good way that for those who are well able, 5 people can buy a cow.
All right.
They give it as a sacrifice. One person who is able can get a goat. And for those who can't, you can maybe come together and say, excuse me, we are buying this together and we are sacrificing. And also for those ones who can't give, you know, they basically don't have anything to give. The Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam in his lifetime he slaughtered 2. He said, this is for me and this is for people among my ummah who cannot do this kind of sacrifice.
All right, Sheikh Hassan, I'm not going to put you in the spot, but Ayub, at least I know you that much and I am sure that you're able to afford, you know, at least a tambuzi moja. You want to tell me you did not even carry 1 kg for me or something, because I am certain that you were able to afford that, at least mbuzi. Or better yet, you joined in with, you know, 4 others of your friends and you sort of slaughtered.
I will do that in person for you.
Inshallah,
I know, like he has to do that.
By the grace of God. Of course,
There's no question
I was
about
about to do that yesterday.
Then what happened? We were not in the office.
Process media.
All right, that aside, let me not fix you. And I think I was having a conversation with Ayub. You know, amid all this, it's supposed to be a show of happiness, togetherness, you know, and living together in harmony and all that. But it is funny to see that very many people can get to that level of course, sort of celebrating this time, you know, sacrificing so much in the name of religion and in the name of course, celebrating everything that would mean or that is required of us by Allah. And then you still go ahead and do things that are contrary to what religion dictates. And I was sort of bringing this picture or painting this picture of basically what we have witnessed with some of, you know, Christian figures, you know, in what we witnessed in, of course, Uganda, LRA, and also the Muslim, you know, figures in the name of course, Al-Shabaab. I will not want to call them the figures, of course, in the name of Al-Shabaab, because they come out to say that they are, you know, sort of conducting ill activities in the country, you know, in terms of course, even causing tough times in terms of security in different, you know, regions across the world. And all this, of course, hiding in the cover of religion. What does it mean and what does it dictate? I mean, why should someone go to that point of making such sacrifices right from childhood, but then again, come and conduct something that is negative in the name of course, religion?
Sister, that's a very wonderful question, and it's well put. To answer it partly, one, I can say that during the time of Eid, there might be some people maybe will celebrate to extremes, and that actually maybe they'll commit some sins which are not godly. That scholars have put it is like doing a wrong thing when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, during the day of judgment. The judge is in front there trying to judge people, then you are actually committing a crime.
A crime, yeah.
You imagine what the judge will
what
do
does it speak of this, yes?
Secondly, on some people who just sacrifice negatively in the name of religion, killing others and doing all those sorts of things that we call risking in the security. We Muslims actually are out of that. Islam itself is a word that means peace. Okay? Yeah. Islam is an Arabic word that comes from peace. So basically, a Muslim should be a peaceful person.
Yeah.
The Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam talks about in one of his traditions, he says, it's not one of us whom others don't feel safe with things that come from his mouth or his hand. So if you harm anybody with your hand or your mouth, that means you are going contrary to the teachings of Islam. Then our Lord himself, one of his 99 names, he is called As-Salam, the originator of peace. Okay? So by you causing any act that doesn't bring peace or terrorism in that aspect, you are going contrary to what your Lord, one of his attributes is. So basically, people do it, they are doing it maybe with the name of, by the name of religion, but Islam is away from that.
Apart from the condemnation maybe that we've witnessed, what other things are put about towards addressing this? Because then it puts the name of the religion, you know, at bay, and it is pretty sad. And I think we've had these conversations before. You know, these Islamophobic attacks that we've witnessed. I mean, it puts all these other people that are genuine in their, of course, praise of the Lord, in their focus on religion, in their ensuring that they uphold, of course, the teachings of the religion. They are put to that balance, and it is pretty sad. So what are some of the things that have been put about towards addressing this apart from that aspect of condemnation?
One of the things that we religious leaders do at our level, for example, in the mosques, we have madrasas. We try to teach our kids how to live with others. For example, Kenya, we have many religions. We teach them that despite the fact that he is maybe a Christian and you are a Muslim, we all come from one father who is Abraham. We share some good humanity qualities that should not be neglected. So they should be treated the same way as humanity. Secondly, when such things happen, you see some Muslim scholars condemn those acts. And what we all need to understand is that terrorism or violence has no religion. And when somebody does something, let it be done, let it be said, for example, if it's Muhammad, let's say Muhammad did this, not Islam has done that. John has done this, not Christians have done this.
All right, the whole essence of generalization and the broad brush painting of specific individuals in the name of religion, but equally research has shown, and scholars have equally from both ends said, that all those who commit these acts in the name of either Islam or Christianity are religious novices. They have no understanding of the same religion they advocate for. Rather pointed out a political interest in what they say is wrapped up in their agenda, of course, and that's what we're witnessing across the globe. So, gentlemen, Sheikh Hassan and Linda, so let's take the break here on the program. We are coming back, still continuing with the discussion. In the last 30 minutes of the program, we'll be having a nasheed playing out on your screens as we commemorate the day that is set to end tomorrow, the third day. Of course, that's on Tuesday. And after the short break, we'll continue on the importance of unity and how that is being fostered and how it's putting people on the same platform, creating that all-level playing field among members of this society. Of course, we are talking about the Eid al-Adha celebration yesterday marked by Muslims across the world and equal here in Kenya. 40920 is the short SMS code, or 791478990 is the number. The hashtag on Twitter is NewDayKE. Stay tuned. We're coming back after the short break. All right, welcome back. We paused for a little bit and continue later on the discussion, but we are still with Sheikh Hassan here on set, of course, taking stock of the importance of the Eid al-Adha celebration yesterday marked across the globe by the Muslims, which equally is known as Eid al-Hajj, marking the end of the Hajj as the pilgrims gather in the holy city of Mecca for one of the important pillars of the Islamic faith, which equally is not mandatory upon person, but if you can afford once in a lifetime, then it becomes a must. Sheikh Hassan, still with you, and we do thank you for coming on board. And I just wanted to pick it up from this particular point, and the essence of having a day like yesterday was to encourage sharing among the community, visiting the sick, helping the elderly, and ensuring that that creates a bit of an economic uplift for those who are not at the same par with others. How important is that in a contemporary society when you look at this? It's not playing out well because of the unequal nature of the societies across the globe. And how practical is it in a secular society like Kenya? And what if then we were in a country like Indonesia or Saudi Arabia, which is a Muslim majority country? How well does it play out in both two scenarios?
Basically speaking, for example, in Kenya, as you've put it, we have Muslim minority. Muslims are few in number compared to other faiths. Here in Kenya, for example, when we slaughter, when we want to share this sacrifice, we don't basically do it to Muslims alone. We will share it with our neighbors.
Everyone.
Everyone. But given that you can't really miss out, when you are distributing, you won't miss out some Christian who will come to the line. Like yesterday, I remember when we were distributing, the many Christians who came, they are our neighbors. Yeah, we live together. The way they will sometimes welcome us to Christmas, we will also share with them our sacrifice. To Indonesia and Muslim countries, some of them were actually send some of their sacrifices to some other countries that have fewer Muslims or fewer, the word that I can put to say, wala wajiwezi sana. They will send it there so that it will be sacrificed. I mean, it will be sacrificed on their behalf. And you will see the Turkish brother. They've slaughtered all over. All over. Not like they don't have the poor there, but the nature of sharing or the idea of sharing, that is what actually runs in their veins.
So how best do we extend this idea of sharing? Like you put it aboard, sometimes it's not even about people not being able to afford this, but we've experienced a lot of conflict and insecurity, and of course, sometimes also in most countries that are, are Muslim, sects, of course, and when you look at this, it makes it very hard for them to practice. It does not really give a conducive environment for them to practice their faith and believe. How best do you ensure that you extend this so that it does not just become an affair of sharing at this particular time of Eid al-Adha, but can be extended, even to other days, so that at least we have a conducive environment, number one, for these people, and most importantly, that sharing, sort of a culture is engraved in these different areas, so that, it can be a lesson, not just to the Muslim brothers, but equally to other religions.
Sister, I think that has been going on all over the days. And the Muslim and the Christians, for example, the majority in this country, have been having dialogues, platforms that they can share ideas. And basically, when they're sharing these, I always talk about basing on the common values and moving away from the differences. Things that divide us, we put them aside and focus on things that bring us together. When we deal with those things that bring us together, then I'll see you as a sister and I'll see him as a brother.
All right.
But if I go to the differences, that will again bring commotion and all that. So there's been platforms for religious dialogues and coming to understand one another. I might deal with you differently because I don't understand you.
Right.
But if I understand you, and I understand that if I cross this line, I'll be in trouble with you, I'll try to restrict myself so that we don't get, So with these dialogues, with this speaking together, actually tries to reduce some kind of violence and all that and frictions. Thank you.
All right, pointing out that and then coming, of course, or putting under the microscopic view of the discussion here of what transpired yesterday and the divisions that are aboard, because there are some who are celebrating today, and of course the different sects of Islam when it comes to the religion, and not per se based on the Holy Book, but equally the beliefs from the imams and the religious leaders who, in the aftermath of the Prophet, were the leaders or took over the leadership of the Islamic community. Pointing out that, how are these differences contributing to differences in opinion equally, which are expressive, which you can express them according to the Constitution, but equally, how do they downgrade the unity in the Islamic community, as is the case with what we're witnessing in the SDA church now, the Seventh-day Adventist, where there is a row over what the intelligence reports cite as job opportunities and schools run by the Adventists across the country. How these divisions, how can they bring about the essence of fragmentations in the mainstream religions in the country? Because we have witnessed that in the Islamic community and equally present on the other end of the religious divide.
I wasn't expecting that question on why others prayed yesterday and others today. But what I'll say is basically the way I started it. If I understand you and respect your view, we will live without any commotion. Basically, differing is ever there. Angels differed at some time. There is this hadith of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this guy who killed 100 people. Then there's an angel who came, wants to take him to Jahannam, another one says, I want to take him to Jannah because he's repentant. So these angels were having kind of ikhtilaf, differences in opinion. The messengers themselves, if you read in the Bible or in the Quran, there is this difference between Dawood and his son Sulaiman. The Muslim scholars, for example, before that, the Sahabas, for example, they also have their divisions and different opinions. And when you come to our scholars, for example, Imam Shafi'i, others will say bring kunut after Fajr. Others will say no, kunut is bid'ah, it's haram, of course, But what is the point line here? How did they deal with their differences? They respected each other when it comes to their differences. If you pray today, for example, and myself, I prayed yesterday, I just respect your opinion, and I don't go in trying to call you names and all this. the way they respected their differences, we should also emulate the same. If we do that, there will be unity. But if you try to, you know, incriminate others, then there will be divisions all over.
Clearly, differences have brought aboard some of course, the stalemates that we witnessed. And I think just the other time we were talking about Eid al-Fitr, there was that commotion that we witnessed in the country as to when, of course, the prayer session should be conducted. And you know, different places in the country sort of conducted their prayer sessions on different days, which is contrary to what we would expect. And genuinely speaking, looking deeply into it, and even the sheikhs that I had on board, really it was not a question of when the moon appeared or something of the sort, but it was a question, was sighted, yeah. But clearly it was a question of the differences that we witnessed within these people that sort of would want to be on top and or maybe at the helm. We had, you know, the differences, of course, that were brought about by the chief qadi at some point in time, and even some sheikhs were complaining that, you know what, we were even trying to call him to tell him that, of course, the moon has already been sighted, but he was nowhere to be found. So in as much as we want to say that it's important that we respect each other and we know we understand the opinions of each other, then it trickles down to the people who are dependent on these, you know, helms of leadership to direct, you know, their activities in terms of the religion. So how can that be brought to balance? That in as much as maybe I respect your difference and you respect the difference, but we are the key figures that determine what the rest of the people are going to do, then how do we get this to balance so that it does not trickle down and affect the rest of the faithfuls?
Actually, I think that can only happen when everybody understands his duties and work. For example, the chief qadi, constitutionally, his office deals with divorce, marriage, and inheritance.
Some aspects.
So
some aspects.
Right?
There is nowhere where his mandate is dealing with the moon. I have my friends who are qadis and all that. You know, some of them we went to the university together. Yeah. Sometimes when the other sex prays the other day, when their boss says, they pray contrary to what their boss said. You know, sometimes it's supremacy, but I don't want to bring myself to that. It's supremacy, this side or this side. But basically, when the moon is sighted, we have one moon, all things should happen. Eid Adha should go with the sighting. Of course, after Arafah, we only have one Arafah, you know, where people stand in the mountains of Arafah and do all that. That should be followed. But if somebody has a different opinion, we respect it, and inshallah, may Allah guide us all.
All right. At the end of the day, then, we don't have the monopoly of knowledge. God does, and ours is just a drop in the ocean. It doesn't have any effect. But equally, again, this coincides. We have talked about the celebrations, what, of course, is important to be done, especially visiting the sick, sharing, ensuring that there is that sense of unity. But equally, the other end, the more than 2 million pilgrims who are in the holy city of Mecca or the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, because they will be transpassing many different, of course, process to ensure that they do complete the entire process of the Hajj. Take our viewers through that process.
Through the process,
one pillar, yes, it's equally one that's anchored in Islam, and it's a lifetime opportunity for some, and it's a conglomeration, or the coming together of people of different race, ethnicity, language, nationality, coming together in millions, praying to one God. Again, brings in the essence of unity, and how important is it, and take us through the process of the Hajj from the onset to the completion process.
And maybe I should ask, should it be a one-time affair, or you can go there as many times as you want?
Of course,
as many times as you want, but at least once in our lifetime if you're privileged. Okay, all right.
Hajj basically, thank you first of all for the question. Hajj in Islam basically is the 5th pillar. And it is a must for those who are able. Of course, able financially to travel to Mecca and come back, and able physically, you know, they have that strength and all that to move to that direction.
Because it's a tedious process.
Yeah, true. When you start, there is, of course, there is the small one, which is Umrah, and there is this one now that we are in, which is Hajj al-Akbar, the real Hajj. A person basically wears ihram when he reaches Miqat, a place where he's supposed to put the boundaries of Haram. And after wearing ihram, he goes to Makkah and performs the tawaf And the essence of that cloth, you see everybody in that white cloth, men, you know, it's humility. Even if you are a president of which country,
brings you to the same level.
The same level.
Okay.
Okay, every day that is present in the mosques.
Yeah.
There's no special place for someone, or a minister or a president to get in. In the mosques, we pray together 2 by 2, whether you're rich or poor, sick or healthy, young or old. There is no classification.
And it depends. When you come earlier, you get the front seat.
It doesn't matter who you are.
It doesn't matter
Unlike
you
what we
are.
witness in our
There's no VVIP.
I know. There's always a VVIP.
In some places, it depends. Whoever contributes more seats in the, you know.
Yes.
But the Haram itself, it's humility and tells us that we are all equal when it comes to a God. He created us all equal.
Yeah.
And after that, they do tawaf in the Kaaba, of course, the holy site. I mean, the holy Kaaba where we always face when we are praying. And after that, they go to Sa'i, between Safa and Marwa.
That is now the footsteps of
of course, before that, they do 2 rakah, 2 unit rakah in Maqam Ibrahim, where Ibrahim was standing while building the Kaaba. After that, then they do Sa'i between Safa and Marwa, and that is actually where the mother of Ismail. Maybe when I mention Ismail on your side, you know, it was
Ishmael.
Ismail.
Ishmael.
Yes.
Is Ishmael.
That is what I was going to say. Christians believe it was Isaac who was to be sacrificed. But we Muslims believe it was Ismail. Okay, so that is a little different.
A little bit different,
Okay, so when they go between their 7 times, actually the way the mother of Ismail was going, Safa, Marwa, while trying to find water for his son, Ismail. Then after that, they wait to the 9th day and stand in the mountains of Arafah, where they supplicate, do a lot of dua all day, you know. And after that, they move now to the Eid now, like yesterday, you know, whereby they'll sacrifice, cut their hair, and, you know, all the other, even remove the ihram, do the tawaf and all that, and that marks the end of Hajj. And again, a rejoinder is, it is for those who are able, and for a lifetime it should be once. It should be once. But the rest, if you go many times, there's no harm. But what is a must is only once in a lifetime.
Okay, that's interesting. Of course, I would look forward to get the message of Eid al-Adha from Sheikh Hassan right here. We've also seen that Sheikh Charo, Salim Charo is here on board. We'll also be getting, you know, that message of Eid al-Adha and a message of peace that, of course, I think should be taken to the viewer, so at least moving forward, we can now say that indeed there was that proper celebration of Eid al-Adha, and equally we have celebrated that moment with our very own viewers. So as we have Sheikh Salim Charo being fixed, of course the mic being fixed, so that we can get that message of hope from him, I think we'll start by listening in from Sheikh Hassan Yusuf. Your message of hope at this particular time, or message of peace, you know, in regards to Eid al-Adha to the viewer.
Actually, my message would be, as we celebrate and we say that it's a sacrifice for all, I will basically tell the viewers to live peacefully with other people of other faiths and sacrifice some things for them, you know. They're your neighbors, they're your countrymen, for example. They share that bond between one father, you know, who is Adam. So there's no need of harming your neighbor. Share the little that you have and live well with others, inshallah.
All right.
And given that, yesterday I was also listening to the Imam who led the prayers of the Eid in Eldoret in Uasin Gishu County, who said that it's important for the leadership of the country to take stock of the developments in the country regarding social aspect, the political aspect, and of course the economic aspect. We'll come to that later, and we'll be having Sheikh Charo equally on board. But you have pointed out equally the importance of the coming together of the people of different faiths to express other important elements that binds them aside from the religion. For instance, Kenya is not a theocracy. We did mention that because we are governed by the rule of law, which is the constitution. The law that applies, say, in Saudi Arabia doesn't apply here. In Kenya, if you steal, you'll be taken to the judicial process, while in Saudi Arabia, the punishment for that is that your hands will be amputated or chopped off if you steal. Now, given that and the developments that we have in the country, the essence of the cocktail of the makeup of the societies that form the republic called Kenya, how important is religion in the unification of the differences that we have politically, socially, and economically? How does it play out, especially at a time like this when we are in dire need of a political remedy process?
Basically, what I can say on that is the religious leaders should play their role, and sorry for that, they should play their role and part well and wisely. Sometimes the divisions we have, it emanates from our religious leaders. If I tell you, for example, that a Muslim is always a terrorist, a Muslim is always an enemy. When I see a Muslim, I'll see that terrorism and enmity.
You visualize that.
Yeah. But if I tell you, for example, these are our brothers, but there are some elements of some people who try to come with the banner of that religion, and they have some kind of violence, I'll see a violent guy as a violent guy, not as a religious guy.
In this case, then, would we say that at some point also, you know, because religion has been considered to be the watchdog of course, of different states, but, you know, with the cropping up of different religions, you know, and different kinds of belief, it becomes very hard for the state to pinpoint one particular one that they would go and abide by. So in this particular case, would we then say that, in a way, maybe religion has contributed towards, of course, the dwindling of the morals of the society, or better yet, maybe the laws of the society? Because today it reached to a point whereby, you know, aside from being guided by what the Quran says or what the Bible says, then most of the leaders would opt to craft their very own ways and laws in the name of a constitution, so that at least they are able to find ways of which the country or maybe the people of a certain state would abide by. Because generally we would have just said, let's go by what the Quran says, let's go by what the Bible says, because these are laws that are good enough, you know, to sort of craft the behaviors of humanity.
Sister will say that for example, our constitution, in it there is freedom of religion and expression. So the constitution, yes, it recognizes the Bible, it recognizes the Quran. There is no way a constitutional lawyer will come and tell you how to worship or how to do this, but they've given you the freedom. So it is up to these religious leaders who are policy makers at religious levels to tell their followers that, yes, we have this constitution, and we also have our book, which is, you know, we follow as a religious entity. If we do any wrong here, we will be taken to a judicial system, you know, and God also is watching us and waiting. So I don't see where the constitution restrains or restricts us in following a religion. Though they formulate laws, make laws, but they have that gap that you have a freedom of worship.
Actually, the question was, you know, sort of opposite of basically what we've said in terms of how religion has sort of altered the activities, number one, of the constitution and also the country at large. Because then, in as much as we want to depend on the religion, of course, as the watchdog, and many a times we've landed into crisis and we go back to religion and we ask for the advice of imams and sheikhs and also pastors and archbishops around, just so they would tell us, okay, now we have hit rock bottom. as a country. Our constitution seems not to be giving us solutions at this particular point. Then we depend on, of course, what is holy for us to be able to be guided. So this confusion that comes along with numerous types of religions, has it in a way altered how, of course, we've managed to deal, or maybe how we have dealt with our issues as a country in terms of, you know, just streamlining politics and equally streamlining the activities in certain states and countries?
That basically you are asking, should we separate religion from the state or what?
Well, in a way, that will also be a question, because at some point in time, I mean, numerous times, like Ayub started by saying, I mean, where is the hand of religion in terms of ensuring that they streamline the activities of the countries? And we would not want to say that religion has not been present. Religion has been present. And why is it that we have landed in such states?
Basically, what I can say is, I won't say like we give Caesar what belongs to him. For example, Islam is a full way of life. The way you coordinate yourself, either politically, economically, and socially, because we have ethics when we are dealing with the business or all that, your economics. We have ethics when you are in politics. How should you carry up yourself and all that. And we have how you deal with the society. So it's a full way of life. I can speak for Islam, but on the other side,
I think I can speak for it and say yeah, it's equally a full way of life.
All right, then we hit the break here on the program. When we come back, we'll turn our attention to the last segment of the program that will see Sheikh Charo on the set here. Before I equally brief you on what's happening on the international scene and get the last nasheed of the program as we head towards the end of the program here on New Day KE this Monday morning, 12th of August 2019. The hashtag on Twitter is New Day KE, 0791478990 is the number. The short SMS code is 40920. Stay tuned. We are coming back after the short break. Yesterday. So we start with the protest in Hong Kong, where it continues to bubble, and the government in Beijing is warning of economic consequence in the event that the protests continue in Hong Kong. Now, there appears no backing down from the opposition to the extradition law, which was proposed by the Carrie Lam administration. They accuse it of being micromanaged or handled by the administration in Beijing of President Xi Jinping, and they say it will be subject to manipulation and abuse, and say that will be a violation of the freedom they got under the administration following the end of the British rule. And of course, the comments by the embattled leader comes as the protesters plan to take to the streets throughout the weekend. And of course, yesterday, Sunday, was the intensification point of the protests, who literally brought the city to standstill. That, according to the officials in Beijing and Carrie Lam administration, says will be having enormous economic consequence on the relations between Hong Kong and, of course, China. Lots of other developments, because we'll just be taking a look at how they have unfolded briefly because of time. And in Yemen, the conflict continues. The UAE-backed Southern Transitional Council, the STC, pitches itself as the true power in the south, not Hadi's government. Now, President Abdurrahman Mansour Hadi is in Riyadh, the capital of Saudi Arabia. He met with King Salman following the developments in the port city of Aden and the capital Sana'a on the day of Eid celebrations regarding the political development. He, according to the President Abdurrahman Mansour Hadi, who lost control of the capital Sana'a after it was overrun by the Houthis in the start of their revolution against the government following the death of the long-term ruler, that is President Ali Abdullah Saleh. Lots of development regarding the 2015 commissioning of the Saudi-led airstrikes against the Houthis, supported by the United Arab Emirates and, of course, the United States of America, and how that has led to some sense of conflict when it comes to the Western world, with Canada and some countries in Europe imposing arms embargo on Saudi Arabia, cutting off trade in terms of the arms deal because they have been used, according to them, against civilians. That led to the massive casualties in the port cities of Aden, the capital Sana'a, and also the other cities that make up Yemen. So that is also developing. We also have developments in Kashmir following, of course, the the putting or the revoking of Article 370, which gave the Indian administered Kashmir region autonomy or independence, and that led to, of course, an ease in the Pakistani capital Islamabad, with the Prime Minister Imran Khan now seeking diplomatic approach, now supported by China, and as presented by his government, of course, have presented complaint at the United Nations Security Council regarding that move by India, which, according to the opposition parties in the Indian capital, New Delhi, have termed it as the dark day of democracy. Well, this comes at a time when the two nuclear neighbors are at it again. They fought 3 wars, 2 over the Kashmir region. And of course, this again might lead to what appears to be an ease in the disputed Kashmir region. Equal developments in Syria with regards to the lengthened and the prolonged war ever since 2011, and also the Ebola outbreak in Uganda, Rwanda, and the Democratic Republic of Congo. The ministers have come together to find an approach to, of course, prevent the spread of the disease that has killed more than 1,800 people, according to the United Nations office in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Well, those are some of the trending topics across the international arena. We have no enough time to look into them in depth, but I'm sure you will have some time to read them. So I now throw it back to my colleague Linda to welcome Sheikh Hassan Charo on set as we head towards the end tail of the program here on Monday. On New Day Kenya, we are taking stock of the lessons of the Eid al-Adha celebrations that were marked yesterday across the globe by 1.7 billion Muslims.
Yes, thank you so much, Sheikh. I call him Sheikh too, by the way. So it's Sheikh Salim Charo. Thank you so much also for your time this beautiful morning as we are towards the last 20 minutes of the program. And of course, we also had Sheikh Hassan Yusuf, who's taken us through the process and maybe just understanding some of the key lessons that we pick from Eid al-Adha. And we are grateful. And I think this time around then we won't take so much from you, but then certainly we'd love to get to hear from you. I mean, just get to hear your voice. And most importantly, that message of hope and peace at this particular period, more so when, of course, the country is grappling with questions to do with insecurity and also political turmoil that we witness today. I mean, there's that level of fear that can only, be tamed by how much we embrace religion and how much we receive that message of hope from, of course, the religious perspective.
Okay, number one, I would like to thank you for inviting me.
Thank you.
And secondly, I wish the viewers Eid al-Adha Mubarak. And talking of the current development politically, I think one of the best solutions is when people abide by the ethics, the teachings of the religion. Because what I believe, there's no religion that teaches animosity to be against one another. And if we apply that in our lives, this can simply and can help us in living in harmony. And this is what we lack from even for the politicians, because most of them, they are in a way affiliated to a religion or another. But when they get there, the problem is that they don't follow what they are supposed to follow. And on the other hand, is that also, let alone the religion, but even the constitution that and the bylaws that they make themselves, they later come to not to implement or apply. So this is the problem that we find with our people. But once we get, once we apply what we think that is right for our people and for the country, that is going to help us as a country.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Given that and the significance of what we're witnessing equally happen across the global arena, I'm sure you are relevant with the developments like of course, what's happening in mainland Europe and in the United States of America, where we have seen growing anti-immigrant sentiments based on religion at some point. And there appears to be a different segmentation slightly because of some feel that the immigrants are taking over completely. Well, that is a deception by the Trump administration, for instance. But there are those who have slogans against religion. We have seen that equally happen in the Muslim world and equally in the Western democracies. How is this a threat to global peace? And where is the role of religion in terms of galvanizing the communities of nations that make up the international arena?
What I can say is that initially, I think the religions were there even so long time ago. And they are there basically to guide people how they should live. And most of the time, I believe, I usually say that religion is like a manual. You know, because it guides its adherents to what they are supposed to be doing. But it got to a point where these politicians and political leaders, when they came with this principle that state should be separated from religion, meaning that they should have the upper hand. And when the religious leaders of the time agreed and accepted this opinion, this is when now we are starting to see things getting out of control. Because basically, there are so many things which are being brought into, so many things they are brought in the world nowadays that were not there before. And because religion guides people morally, spiritually, and so many other things, we can see when you're talking of morals at the present day, you can see things have completely changed. Because the main thing that was guiding people towards their morals and their values, it has been separated, and you've been told that's something else. So we listen to the political class. So when you're talking of this, that's why you find that things are not going the way they should be going. Yeah.
All right. Okay, so then, of course, as we get to wind up the program, I think you already gave us the message of hope, so maybe we can just give you a chance to say something to the viewers as we get to wind up, and equally, of course, we'll listen in from Sheikh Salim Charo as we cross over to, what do we call these songs again?
Well, the Nasheed, I think we have a couple of them,
yes.
if our director can confirm. Okay, I think we'll be just having to finish up the discussion in the next 10 minutes or so. So all about before the conclusion point, at least we need to utilization of the time here on board. And Sheikh Hassan, coming to you before we went on break, you specified or outlined the process of the Hajj, the pilgrimage process, which equal to some have no understanding, and you met them in the preparation process, but yet they don't have the guide to execute that. And while some have come to the help of the many people who want to make the one-time life opportunity to the holy city of Mecca, it's equally paramount to point out the essence of religion in contemporary Kenya versus the state. At one point you did mention that. And while it is the binding element of this country is the constitution, which is the rule of law that must be adhered to by all citizens regardless of your religious affiliation. What has been the role of religion in post-1963 Kenya when you look at the developments that have happened ever since 50 plus years later, and especially at a time when the country is grappling with the question of ethnic diversity? You look at the grievances expressed by the people in the coast region, as is the case with the Pokot massacre, which happened in the early 1970s, to the people of, say, Mandera or Wajir counties of the Wagala massacre. You come to Nairobi, there are cases of extrajudicial killings. Where is the point of the religious leadership standing up to address issues that affect the society before the coming in of the security apparatus or the government by large?
Actually, by your question, thank you for first of all for that question. Religious leaders actually have been speaking to policymakers like the government, and by them speaking to them on trying to address these issues that have been there. For example, the issue of inequality. They also want equal representation without, for example, looking for, where does this person come from? Is it the coast or wherever? Religious leaders are speaking to the leaders. They want each person to be where he's supposed to be. An engineer should not be looked at like you are from the coast, and the coast people should not get anything from this nation, for example. You are, for example, from Northeastern, they are trying to speak to the policymakers on making sure that everybody gets a place in the national cake. And as I said before, as Islam, equality has always been there. Equality has always been there, even in appointments. The Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam will put you in a place where you best suit. If you are a soldier, he puts you there. If you are an engineer, a blacksmith, which was engineering of those days, he puts you there. A businessman, the same. So there was no like, you are not an Arab like me, stay away, no. He will put you where you're supposed to be. And the words of Allah, inna akramakum indallahi atqakum. The best amongst you is the one who fears Allah more not based on your tribe, not based on where you come from and all that. If these policies or these things that religious leaders tell the government, if they are followed to the latter, then we will not have divisions and all that as a country.
Sheikh Chari, you brought about a very pertinent point that, you know, at that particular time when we all started saying that, yes, the state should be separated from religion, and maybe religion should just focus on doing what religion requires of them, as opposed to focusing to try and instill some values that are within religion into the state officers, into the people at large. Because then again, we are at this particular, of course, aspect of religion before we become this, or better yet, we would say we are Kenyans before we become what and everything. So all these things in a way intertwine. Religion is key. And also the fact that you are at this particular, you know, a member of this particular country, or maybe a citizen of this particular country, they all intertwine. But where really did the rain start beating us? Because when we preach water and we take wine, you know, it becomes hard for even, of course, the presidents, who is, or maybe the key figures of the state, who are the ultimate, of course, overseers of basically the activities of the state. It becomes hard for them to bestow the lives of these citizens on the hands of religious leaders who equally have showcased a way of differences that we see. At some point in time, we've been told there's nothing as terrible as, you know, people of the same, maybe I would say of the same cloth going against each other. I'd want to say that maybe you're in the same religion and you're going against each other, then that is a tight fight. It's even tighter as the fight that you would fight with people from a different cloth. So when you witness these differences that we witnessed, of course, within, of course, the Muslim setup, within the Christian setup, and, you know, all these different churches and all this, of course, most that we're talking about, it becomes hard for the state to bestow that belief and hope that indeed the religious leaders are great overseers and they can streamline all the differences that we witness in the society. So how best can we restore that, of course, you know, respect that we once had, the respect that we've had from the books that we witnessed today, that was showcased by the prophets, that was showcased by, of course, different imams back then. How do we get to restore that so we can as well win the confidence of the state?
Okay, number one, I just want to add on what Sheikh Hassan has said, is that, you know, religion has been the core of this country. So many years back, Islam was here even before the missionaries came. And we've seen so many places developing since then. And then later when the missionaries came, we've seen a lot of the developments, schools, hospitals, and so on. And this is done from the religious aspect. And when you talk of, also talking of morality of the country, it is that in a way, we Kenyans, we are religious. Because where we went through, the school that we went to, it's basically a religious school. It's most of the schools are sponsored by religious institution. And there's a way that there are some values that they are taught there. But the problem is applying and implementing. When you get out of there, you want to be westernized, you know, and which is not a bad thing. But what are the things that we are trying to absorb from the West, and which turns out to be things which are not okay. Coming to the point that men of cloth turning on one another, each other, that's something that is there. And even on our part, we have the worst of it. But also, we are playing a very big role. And we are also working very closely with the government. I think what is trending currently in the political scene is it's about BBI. But so many people can never tell you how it came about. It is not about these two principals decided to sit down and they said, okay, we are going to sit down together. It came from somewhere. And it was out of influence of religious leaders. Yeah, when they talked to them and eventually they agreed, it was not about sending representatives, but they talked to them and that they should sit together so that they bring a country to where it should be. And also you remember during that election nearing here, there was this call, where are the religious leaders? And this is the part that we played. And there are so many things. Government works closely with the religious leaders. We have the interfaith Interfaith Council of Kenya, which works very closely with the government when it comes to the policies, when it comes to even some development being done, of which even it happens, it brings together all the religion, all the faiths in Kenya, and that they contribute in a lot of things.
All right.
Yeah.
And of course, the important element of intertwinement between the religious leadership and the government is equally playing out well, as we witness in the country. But Sheikh Salim Charo, Chairperson, the Council of Imams and Preachers of Kenya, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
And making time on the program, as is the Ali Bad who came on board a bit earlier than you did. Sheikh Hassan Yusuf, who is lecturer at Umar University and is well versed with Islamic affairs, as we were taking stock of the lessons from the Eid al-Adha celebrations. And that's where we come to an end here on the program, but we leave you with this important clip of the Islamic Nasheed before and Linda will cue that for that matter.
Islamic Nasheed. All right, I hope I got it all right. And of course, we've got nothing much to say apart from, of course, thank you so much for keeping us company right from the word go. And we say asante sana to the guests of the day, and most importantly, you back at home. Let's get to listening to these great pieces from, of course, the Islam religion.